Hey everyone, welcome to the 5 Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I'll finish my thoughts on big beer buyouts, talk about the perfect pour, wrap up my conversation with the deep-thinking Ehren Stuff from Harry Stuff Brewing, and review Hop Horizon from Troegs Independent Brewing. In this segment of Tales from the Trail, I'm going to continue my thoughts on craft beer buyouts by Big Beer. What's an everyman to do? As a reminder, the Brewers Association defines an American craft brewer as a small and independent brewer. Small, meaning annual production of 6 million barrels of beer or less. Independent, less than 25% of the craft brewery is owned or controlled by a beverage alcohol industry member, which in itself is not a craft brewer. And brewer, has a TTB brewer's notice and makes beer. When the home and craft brewing revolution started in the late 70s and early 80s here in the United States, there was a youthful up yours toward the big American brewers of the day. Craft brewing was innovative, cutting edge, and creative. It always has been and always will. So how did we get to this crossroad? I read somewhere a great analogy of the current state of the craft beer industry. It is going through a middle-age crisis of identity. I'll be honest, I can't fault longtime regional brewers like Larry Bell of Bell's Brewing or Mike Stephen and Dave Egbers of Founders Brewing for selling their majority stakes in their breweries. After brewing for 30-plus years, who wouldn't want to cash in while they're still healthy and able to enjoy their retirement nest egg? The danger in this is that the bigger distribution typically means fewer one-off or seasonal beers are produced and more of a focus is put on the mainstream core beers. I know it all comes down to making money, but to me, this is just a bit too safe. Where is the out-of-the-box thinking in this? Think about what would happen if supply chains are interrupted, or there was a poor growing season for hops or grain. Theoretically, an InBev, Kirin, or Mahou could come into a region and buy up all the cans, bottles, or ingredients, making it tough for the true small independent brewers. It has happened before, and could happen again. So where does this leave us? Should we get a flight or fight? What used to be a half and half or a black and tan kind of discussion now becomes very, very turbid, almost hazy. I think this puts craft beer aficionados into two camps: independent craft brewery purists or ambivalent craft beer drinkers. I used to stand firmly with one foot on each side, but as of late, I think I lean more towards being a craft beer purist. I'm not trying to tell you one way or another which way you should go. I just want us all to think about how our choices can affect the industry. If we all decided to avoid drinking the products from these big conglomerates, what kind of effect could that have in sending a message that the craft beer drinking community does not want this? I still struggle with this, even though I always make it a point to be sure I'm supporting the local independent craft breweries whenever possible. My challenge for the consumer is this: the next time you reach for a multi-pack of mass-produced big beer, no matter how good it is, no matter how highly rated it is, whether it's craft or not, take a step back and think about what offerings the brewery up the road might have on tap and whether that $20 you drop would be better spent supporting a business in your community. For the independent craft brewer, my challenge to you requires a bit more effort. Keep experimenting and innovating. Keep pushing the envelope of the styles, but remember the history and roots of beer. Keep closely connected to your brewing community and customer base. And most importantly, keep on brewing. This week's hop hack is about the perfect pour. I used to look down upon it, but now one of the most beautiful sights in the world is going to your nearest independent craft brewery and having a beer that is perfectly poured with a 1 to 1.5 inch high head. This look can actually give you a bit more aroma and flavor, which enhances the enjoyment of a pint. So what's the trick for getting this kind of look at home? Here are some very simple instructions that are pretty universal. The first thing you want to do is tilt your glass to a 45-degree angle. Then, align the bottle so it pours the beer at the midpoint of the side of the glass, or if using a can, make sure it pours directly into the center of the glass. Finally, once the glass is half full, tilt the glass to a level position and fill to the top. Voila! The perfect pour! I've found that a beer with no foam tends to taste flat. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, having the right kind of glass can also make a difference in the pour. For anyone that doesn't like the taste or feel of foam, not a problem. try for a smaller 1/2 inch tall head. It does take a little bit of practice, so do what I do and keep on pouring. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. For this week's interview, I kick around favorite beer styles with Ehren Stuff, who is the owner and head brewer at Harry Stuff Brewing in Wauwaka, Indiana.
Ehren, thanks for joining me. Appreciate you being on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks. To me, the best style of beer in the world is Alambic Gauze.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pronounced.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not, my French isn't really that strong. But to me, just without a doubt, the best style in the world.
I would agree. I love a good lambic. I really do. Get those great fruit flavors. Santa Diabla was one of your barrel aged beers. Great fruit flavor, great barrel aged kind of profile to it. It's that kind of beer that I really enjoy myself because it's super complex.
Yeah, because I mean, not only does fermentation impart something. I mean, the barrel itself is imparting. I mean, when I do it in stainless steel isn't imparting anything.
Right.
Nor would I ever want it to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the age also. I mean, a lot. Some of these barrel-aged beers, we're aging for 2-3 years, and a lot happens in 2 or 3 years. Versus, a quick fermentation stainless steel that's, a couple weeks.
And I don't think people realize either that it does take more than just a few weeks to brew up a good barrel-aged beer. Like you said, 2-3 years. So.
And I mean, the difficulty also, and this is no fault of the consumer, but it's also a little bit more difficult for the consumer to understand and maybe sometimes to realize the subtleties there. And it's just, for the most part, they haven't experienced it. They might not know what they're detecting. And I often think, the first time I ever had a beer, I thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it was probably some Red Dog, when I was 16 years old. But I didn't really understand why people like beer or anything. But I mean, as I matured and I got older, I tried different things. I allowed my palate to grow.
Yes.
Not that our palates are always going to grow to enjoy barrel. Maybe you'll always dislike them, but there's a lot of people that will never even give it a chance because it's out.
I always refer to them as a NASCAR beer, so if you like the NASCAR beers, that's fine, the big domestics. I think people are more comfortable with that because they're light, they're simple, you don't get a whole lot with them. And then, if you move to the craft, I think you see a lot of people that are really big on the hazy, hoppy IPAs, the juicy stuff. They're comfortable with that, but, you see like you said, a lambic, you see a saison, you see a Berliner or a sour IPA, you're like, I don't know if I want to try that or not. And I'll tell you what, those are some amazing styles. They really are.
Yep.
Creative, super creative.
Yeah, I mean, it's one that really would work better in a wine setting because I've always, from my wine experiences, I feel that they do a lot better job at descriptors. And not only that, but when you go to a winery and you do the tastings, I think they do a little bit better job, with going through each wine. Whereas at a brewery, I feel at least in my setting, I don't really a lot of times have time to go through each beer because we also have the food aspect.
Right.
And I think breweries tend to have more food than what wineries do. I could be wrong there.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that.
And I think that, plays a part. You think about like a distributor like sour beers. I've always felt that doesn't really do justice to those type of beers because one that's barrel aged has gone through mixed fermentation. There's so much more going on there. And unfortunately, then you take one that was a Kittle sour. I get it. It's you're a business. You want to make something sour. There's no complexity. And so it's hard when you have a consumer come in and they're like, well, why am I paying, a couple more dollars a pint for your sour versus that Kittle sour? Well, it's because the Kittle sour took, a few days to make.
Right.
Mine took years and it's far more complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe the best comparison would be to coffee. I guess to most people, I don't know, maybe most people won't get this comparison, but for me, let's say, you bring me a cup of coffee and it's Nescafe. To me, it's, I'll drink it just because, I want something hot to drink. But let's say you bring me this nice, single origin that got roasted, a local roastery that did a great job with it. There's a massive difference.
Indeed.
I mean, for the average coffee drink, all they're going to maybe say is, I just get bitterness. And, that I don't know. Like, that's, I guess, the difficult for me is explaining taste and aromas. It's a difficult process.
It is. It really is. Because you have so many, with any kind of food or drink you have, there's so many subtleties depending on what it is. Like I said, you've got some great barrel-aged beers, a lot of great fruit notes that are through it. But that's one thing personally that I really try hard to mine out of a beer is to kind of check the aroma. What kind of notes am I getting in the aroma? What does it look like? Is it hazy? Is it clear? What do the first sips taste like? How does it finish? It's fun. It's almost a game for me, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a home brewer, it was probably easier to make those beers because you don't have to sell them. But as a professional brewery, they can be a little frustrating because if you don't put a fruit in there, it's a lot more difficult. It's just about understanding. If you've never had an IPA, maybe you'll never understand it. But now, if you put IPA on anything, it's going to sell.
I remember the first time I had an IPA, I thought it was terrible. I'd never had one before. I was mainly a stout drinker. It was awful. But now, I love a good IPA.
Yep,
I really
absolutely.
do. I really do.
I don't know. It's a frustrating thing to do, barrel-aged beers.
Yeah.
When they turn out well, there's nothing better in the world. But having patience to wait on it for years, and then to then try to sell it can be a very frustrating mess. I mean, going forward, it's something we're obviously going to keep doing, but I do realize that obviously probably 99% of them are always going to be fruited beers because it's easier to say to somebody, well, this is a raspberry sour than it is to explain the whole lambic process and spontaneous fermentation or whatever it may be. It's a lot more easy just to say, here's your raspberry fruit beer.
So would you then say that your favorite style of beer then personally is the barrel-aged style?
I have favorite styles, but not like one.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I consider, that's what we make here. We make IPAs, lagers, barrel-aged beers.
Yeah.
Those are my three favorite kind of areas or whatever you want to call them. Do you have a favorite?
At the moment, it's going to be probably more the sour fruited beers, just because it's a style that I think is really expanding. I'll often try to order a couple of the lighter beers, the fruitier beers, so be the fruited sours, just because I don't want to kill my palate right away.
Yeah.
I want to be able to taste something for a little bit.
I guess, if you put me in like a premier craft beer bar and I'm looking through the menu, I'm definitely going to check out to see if there's a gauze.
Yeah.
And if there is, without a doubt, that's going to be the first thing I'm going to order. One that is done by a traditional lambic producer. Well, then again, if Allagash or a Hill Farmstead or a Jester King's on there, I'm going to order theirs.
Yeah.
They're not going to call theirs a gauze, because that's a regional, only for Belgian breweries.
Yes.
I do think that is the most beautiful drink/style of beer in the world. It's something I would love to produce here. I guess I am intimidated to do it because I don't want to invest all that time and energy into something that people just won't understand. Because it is a minimum 3-year process. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah. Indeed.
I don't know if your viewers are. Have you talked to them about
I have not yet. Go ahead and explain a little bit more, Ehren.
But it's a style that requires 3 years because you're blending. So first off, it's spontaneous fermentation. So you don't have any control over that.
Right.
So you're going to brew a batch of beer. You're not gonna cool it through a heat exchange or anything like that. You're gonna put it into a what's the term I'm looking for here?
The open tank.
Yes.
I want to say it's an art.
The cool ship.
Yeah, the cool ship.
So you're going to put it in a cool ship, which is basically like a large rectangular stainless steel tank. And it's going to set in there overnight. And it's going to collect, just the various wild microbe in the air, and then the next day you're going to, take that wort, put it into various barrels. And out of all those various barrels, over time, you're going to start dumping them. And you might be left with, maybe 50, 25%. I mean, who knows? And that's just year one. And you're going to be doing you got year 2, you got year 3, and then at year 3, finally, you can make a gauze. And that's when you're going to be blending barrels from year 1, 2, and 3. And year 3, obviously, being the most complex. Year 2 is kind of somewhere in between, and then year 1 will help you with, it will still have the fresh yeast to allow you to finish off and combine the 3. It's an art, without a doubt. Those are the most artistic people in the whole brewing industry. And I would love to do that. There's a few breweries in the U.S. doing it, and those are the places that I personally, as a beer geek, would be most willing to go to my way to visit.
So what about your least favorite style of beer? And it can just be like at the moment. I mean, because, again, tastes change, right?
Least favorite, definitely these kind of pastry beers.
Okay.
Not necessarily, just more so the things that I would say a couple of things. One thing, here we just use natural ingredients. That's just something I like to do. When I go out to a store and I try to buy something, I try to find something that has the least amount of artificial flavors. So, am I going to use a Snicker bar in my beers? No. Because, it's chock full of artificial. Do I understand why a consumer is drawn towards it? Sure.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, I don't want to make somebody upset.
Yeah.
Because, that might be their favorite beer. That's
everybody's
Snicker
got their niche.
stout.
Yeah.
It's not for me using those things. And the beers with lactose, I'm also not really into.
Sure.
I get it. I got a bunch of friends, they really enjoy it. It's just, beer, that's my least kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm not really into that, like, overly sweet kind of beers like that. I think beer should be drinkable. I don't want, like, just 5 ounces. I want something you can have a pint of. And I don't know how many pints you can have of a milkshake IPA. That's the cool thing about beer, is there's something for everybody. Maybe that brewer that's making that milkshake IPA, maybe they get somebody into the world that finds out, maybe that's not their favorite. Maybe they go on and that's their gateway to go to Sierra Nevada.
Indeed.
Or whatever. So, it's, that's why there is 9,000 breweries. There's enough room for all those type of styles.
Yep. And that's what I love about the industry. There's something for everyone, really. There really is. And the other thing I like about the industry is that at least the craft brewers that I'm familiar with and have a relationship with, they all collaborate really well with others in the industry that are near them. We're not competing with you. We're not trying to put you out. We want to work together. We want to see how we can succeed in this area of food industry and move forward. So, I've got stories of people during COVID when it first kicked in that they didn't have a canning machine. Well, one of their brewers up the road lent them a canning machine so they could at least have curbside pickup. Or maybe you run out of cans and somebody provides you with cans because there was a shortage at one point. So I love how the industry as a whole, I think, really, especially the smaller independent guys like you, are out there to help each other. That there is competition, but it's a healthy competition.
Oh yeah, I definitely see a lot of that. I do worry about what the future of that will be, which is another reason it is important. It is important who buys which brewers.
Yeah.
This often thing I hear from people is, I don't care who's making the beer. I don't care that InBev bought this or that brewery. Well, we might care when your supply chains get cut off, as in the case of the Miller incident where they bought up the hop fields and the local South African breweries couldn't buy hops from their own country anymore.
Right.
So it's something to be cognizant of. going forward, I know that some of the older breweries that I've respected, some of them have mentioned that, the brewery industry has changed, but there are still a lot of those type of stories.
Yeah.
I mean, even a brewery like Samuel Adams, they, historically have always tried to help smaller breweries.
Indeed, yep.
When there was a hop shortage back there 10 years ago, they were selling other breweries hops, not making money. They're selling them at the same prices. Mm-hmm. They've provided breweries not loans, they've provided them grants.
Yes.
Grants are, the difference
Huge.
is they're not trying to make money off you, they're giving you money.
Yeah.
So there are instances where, those things definitely are important. The scary thing is when you have somebody like the Brewers Association that has worked for smaller breweries historically, and then they allow a company, then when Canarchy was bought, they still consider Canarchy to be a large independent brewery.
Right.
Well, but that company is owned by Monster, and Monster is 20% owned by Coca-Cola. So let's say Coca-Cola decides, hey, let's buy up all the cans, or whatever it may be, and let's say the smaller breweries can't get those, or it drives up the price on them.
Yeah.
That's why it's important.
Yeah.
It's important who owns these breweries. It's, but no, I mean, I'm not trying... I'm just trying to point something out because I think we should also talk about, collaboration and those aspects. Because, I mean, definitely during COVID, a lot of people were helping each other out. Absolutely. Like I was pointing out about our customers, friggin' awesome. One of the best stories of 2020.
Yeah. And I know I made a point also myself of trying to support our local restaurants, our local grocery store. I mean, we try the same thing to support, because those are the things that keep your little towns and villages alive.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you don't have those, you've got nothing.
Yeah, who wants to move to a place that's just full of Taco Bells and Walmarts?
Right.
I mean, hopefully you got an ocean or something,
Yeah.
Let's say, I would much rather move, me personally, if I had to pick, between whether you get to pick a thriving small town that has fantastic restaurants and art scene, or you can pick a place that just has McDonald's, Taco Bell's, Walmart's, and a great, location. Which one are you going to pick?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's nice to have a mountain or a sea, but in your day-to-day basis, I would much rather have those local restaurants, that thriving art scene.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, another importance to why it's so important to support these smaller places. I mean, if a company like InBev could have its way, I mean, it obviously would never want any of these small breweries to exist. No. I mean, it's
and that's the whole reason that they're going after some of these larger independent brewers in the first place, because they want a piece of the pie, plain and simple.
Yes, yeah. Well, they also they want more distribution. They want more control.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get it. It's capitalism, but monopoly is not capitalism.
No.
Monopoly is different, and that's what people need to be cognizant of. I mean, granted, I'll be honest. If InBev came here tomorrow and offered me a few $1 million, would I sell? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I get it. I'm not blaming.
I can't fault anyone for that, really.
Not,
I mean, look at founders. I can't fault the guys for selling. They've been brewing for 30 plus years.
Sure.
They're ready to retire. I get that.
I understand why Larry Bell sold. I mean, the guy had cancer 3 times.
Yeah.
Go and live your life. Do awesome things. But does it mean I need to buy Bell's beers anymore? No. I'm sorry. I'm not going to. It'd be like, well, they still make great beers. Well, right now they do. We'll see what they do. Yeah. But on top of it, there's so many other breweries that make great beers too.
Yeah.
Why not support those? And I mean, granted, I will say this, just because somebody's local, they might not be a good person. So should you go and support that local place just because it's local? Not necessarily either. That's what you're going to have to find out.
Exactly.
If you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe most people don't want to overthink where they're spending their dollars.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. That's all part of
But again, getting behind the curtain here and seeing the operation and knowing your passion. If you don't treat your employees well, if you don't have quality of food, if you don't have the high standard of beer, I mean, why would you want to come to a place to support somebody like that? I mean, my money's going to go to something that's going to be something that's not substandard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would rather spend it at a quality place.
Yeah.
Some of those InBev facilities are ran from a quality standpoint.
Yeah.
I can't argue there. I mean, it's hard to argue with somebody that says, well, InBev brewers are union, they make a good amount of money, and that is true. My problem is the monopoly, the way that they use extremely low interest rates from the Federal Reserve to buy up and raise the prices on all of us smaller people. I would like equal access to that
Sure.
type of almost 0% interest rate.
Yeah, and you don't think about that. I mean, I think that's a good point you're making, and something that I hope people that listen are think about those choices they make.
We could all pay our employees more too if we had the access to those artificially low interest rates that a company like InBev has access to.
Yeah,
that's where it's once again anti-capitalistic.
And that's where you come in, being the owner/brewer. You've got that insight into what's going on, and you have to. So.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, I mean, people are. It's what you want to make a decision.
Yeah.
I think if we were to ever change anything in your life, I mean, where you spend your money is going to make the biggest impact.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. One last fun thing, maybe before we wrap up. If you were a beer, what style would you be?
I don't know.
Okay, and that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, I saw that question, and honestly, I think often of a Walt Whitman quote, and that's part of one of his poems. Do I contradict myself? Very well, I contradict myself. I'm large, I contain multitudes. And I just always like that, because it's all about in life. We are just full of just unlimited capacities. Am I going to change my opinions? Absolutely. Am I going to gravitate to something new or find something unexplored inside of myself as I move through life? Sure, if we're willing to.
Yeah.
And so I guess if we, limit ourselves to I am a male or I am a beer or whatever, I feel it's a limitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I respect that, man.
And I think that's where I have the most respect for, like homebrewers get shit on all the time. Like, oh man, look at the crap they produce. Like, it's like a joke. But to me, they are the most innovative force that came around and transformed craft brewers. Because as a brewery owner, I sometimes have to limit myself to that stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like they can encompass that Walt Whitman type of spirit, where they've unleashed, so many different styles, but because of them. The revitalization of, spontaneous fermentation in the U.S. I mean,
yes.
They're a part of that movement. I mean, along with people like Allagash and Benny Chiruzzo from Russian River. The reason we have hazy IPAs, I would probably say that probably, was also, because of a lot of home brewers, I mean, granted, there's people like John Kimlet from the Alchemists that were, on the forefront of that. But these home brewers wanting to clone these beers and to just flood the internet and the forums, that's a driving force.
Yeah, that's great answer, great insight. Again, I think that's everybody's different, and I love I love that perspective. I really do. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat about beer and your experience as a brewer owner. If you ever get out to Wabasa, Indiana, definitely check out Harry Stuff Brewing, and appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me on the show.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up, but first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm drinking Hop Horizon IPA from Troegs Independent Brewing in Hershey, PA. It is one of their new spring releases. I've been a fan of their beers ever since I first tasted Nugget Nectar and Nimble Giant. The can says this: ever smelled a hop field in full bloom? Hop Horizon is your shortcut to where the sky meets the vines. A blend of pale malts, wheat, and oats lay down a base of gentle grain. Then a combination of Citra, Mosaic, and Sabro hops unleashes juicy waves of sweet citrus and bubblegum with a punch of tropical fruit. Well, without further delay, the can says to serve this in a tumbler. I get a nice, clean-looking beer that has a generous head. The initial aromas that I'm getting out of this to begin with are certainly tropical. I would agree with some of the can suggestions that there are juicy, sweet citrus. So the color of this beer, it's very clean, as I mentioned. It's probably somewhere between a pale gold and maybe a deep gold color. Waves and waves of fresh, juicy hop notes on the nose. First taste, definitely getting a little bit of that sweetness to it. It's got a lot of soft feeling on the mouth. And that's definitely coming from probably some of the oats that they have in the grain bill. A little bit of grassiness. The Mosaic is a great hop for tropical notes, and of course Citra is one of those standards that you have for IPAs, just because it has that great citrus profile. It's not super bitter. It's actually pretty smooth. It's not my favorite from Troegs, as mentioned. There's some others that I really like a lot more. But for a day-to-day beer, this is one that I could see myself keeping stocked in the fridge, because I think it would go with a lot of great food. I think that it's something you could share with your friends that come over. Be enjoyable at 6.5%. It's not really going to lay you out. It's got great tropical notes on the nose. Again, a little bit of citrus on the palate. So I'd give it 3 tasters out of 5 on the flight paddle. Cheers, Troegs. If you've got a beer you'd like me to drink and describe, leave a comment below. If you're a brewer and have one in mind, direct message me on Instagram and let's see what we can do. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time when I'll talk labels and can art, share another hop hack, and riff with self-professed metalhead Mark Osborne from Adroit Theory Brewing. Remember to hit the subscribe button to be notified of new episodes. I'd love to hear from you, so please follow me on Instagram, 5 Beer Plan 2022, and leave a comment to let me know whether you are an independent craft brewery purist or an ambivalent craft beer drinker, and why. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail and stay thirsty, my friends.